Hello, my name is Rick. Welcome to my channel. In today's not guitar lesson, I'm going to be answering questions that you asked about a month or so ago when I hit my 1,000 subscribers. So meant to do it sooner, but you know, life gets in the way. So let's get right to it. Rick Nelson asked, what is the most rewarding song you have ever learned? When I thought about it, I would say two answers. One was For the Love of God by Steve Vai. Never played it live, but I played it in a band, and that was pretty cool. That was hard. Probably when I was in my late 20s. He does it on a 7-string, so I had to kind of fake the last really fast picking part. I had to jump from here to here. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because like I'll give you one other answer, and then I'll kind of expound. What's the word? I'll expand and expound on that. The other one, I think I know Rick here, Rick Nelson I know, so I think you'll appreciate this. I would have to say also would be a couple songs I learned when I was 16 years old by Jerry Reed, fingerstyle picking songs. Mr. Lucky starts out something like this is really cool. Well, the whole song is amazing, but it has this cool alternating bass. Let's see. That's it. Yeah, I'm really rusty on that, so I'm not gonna try to hack through it. But yeah, Mr. Lucky and what was the other one? The Claw. So on, so on. Yeah, my teacher Scott, when I was 16, turned me on to Jerry Reed, and he was my teacher was a fantastic fingerstyle player, so did classical and different kinds of fingerstyle, and so I was in the middle of listening to, you know, Metallica and Anthrax and Randy Rhoads and all this stuff, and then all of a sudden I found these songs, and I spent the whole summer, I mean, I was thinking, oh, it's funny how some people have these summers they remember when they were kids, like, oh, out on the dock, on the boat, campfire, and for me it was like the summer of learning fingerstyle Jerry Reed songs when I was, you know, more of a metalhead and whatnot. So those songs, I guess, were rewarding because it was very difficult and so new to me and stuff. My other part of the answer is I don't really have other songs. It's really strange. Like, I think this gets into maybe another topic that I could go into some other time. But I tend to like learn a song or just parts of songs even just to get new ideas and get influenced by them, and then I just move on and I want to apply it to my own writing and playing. So it's kind of interesting, like even this age of YouTube where there's people playing, you know, complete cover songs from beginning to end, and you know, and it's cool, and it's if they enjoy doing it, and you know, it can be very impressive and stuff. But I just never really cared too much about that. Yeah, that's probably a longer conversation. But so yeah, that's my quick answer is the Steve Vai song and Jerry Reed, which is kind of funny because the fingerstyle stuff is not even what I do, but it was, maybe that's partly why it was rewarding, because it was you know, definitely more of a challenge. So let's see, next question. Jeff Neppel asked, are there any musicians who are not guitarists who have been influential from a composition or general musicality standpoint? And if so, why have they been so influential? Not to give another vague answer, maybe this is an ongoing theme with me. I don't probably have specific people that are huge influences that are outside of guitar players, but I'll give you some kind of ideas. Like, I love jazz, and so I love jazz sax, trumpet, and piano players, especially those three. And so, for example, Miles Davis is, you know, amazing. And although I don't really see it in my playing at all at this point, that's a huge influence. It's like very inspiring to me. I'd like to learn more about it. So I would say that. Other than that, I would say for sure, like things like Indian music, Debashish Bhattacharya, Indian slide player, and things like Turkish music, Middle Eastern music, Latin music. They're just endless things. Gamelan music, check that out if you haven't heard it, from Bali, Indonesia. And again, there's no way I can see that directly translates. Like I wouldn't say, oh, there's this directly this specific Indian musician. But if you listen to my solo album I did, Reconstruction, there's definitely, you can tell there's influences from music from around the world, which is a big, huge, passion for me. I love that, different things. So I think this gets into another question I can answer later. So yeah, so it's not really one specific musician outside of guitar. Like I love, last couple of years especially, I've been listening to a lot of classical piano, like Bach, Beethoven, Shostakovich. Yeah, I don't know how it translates. It's got to go in your head somewhere and come out somewhere at some point, hopefully. I don't know. That'd be the ideal thing. Let's see. Brian Chambers asked, my question would be to share a bit about your lead tone, your approach to it, what equipment you use, amp settings, tone and volume knobs, settings on guitar, etc. So I grabbed this because on my, my album Reconstruction, this was probably one of the main secret sauce ingredients, Tim pedal. These are, kind of a collector's item now. They don't make them like this anymore. I think these are crazy expensive too. They're like $700 or $800 for these now. I used to have 3 of them. I was so paranoid about losing my tone that I had 3, and then I sold one to my friend, and then I just sold another one not too long ago. I don't really care now. It's I'll probably keep this one just for just for fun. And if I want to call upon that tone that was on my album. This, by the way, is another big component of it. I'll talk about that in a minute. Hope this video isn't too long. It might be. The thing there, just to digress for a minute. So I was kind of paranoid about losing my tone, so I had the same equipment for years and years and years, and I was like, because I worked pretty hard to get the sound I have on my album, and I think it has, kind of a unique sound tone-wise, so for better or worse, it's all personal preference, of course. And now I just don't care. I think, in fact, I'd like my next album, hopefully next year or two, to be a different sound, so. This guitar, I think, has a lot to do with it. This was built for me by Campbell American Guitars, Dean Campbell out of New England. I have a few of his guitars. I think I've had 4 guitars. I think I have 3 still. So the story's here, mahogany sapel, is that how you pronounce it? And then Lawler pickups, which I love, ebony fingerboard, just maple neck, and stainless steel frets. And I have another guitar by Dean that's identical, same, ebony fingerboard, stainless steel frets, same maple neck, same mahogany body, same pickups, but the mahogany, when we talked about it, me and Dean, I think he said one was from one piece of wood was from Africa and one from South America, something like that. But I know they were from different places, and the guitars sound quite a bit different. This is kind of a good argument for electric guitars, the wood not making a difference. It's like, maybe I'll do it in a video sometime. You can clearly tell. This one has a little more of a sharp kind of and by the way, that scale length is the same on both guitars, which is the longer Fender scale length, 25.5 inches, I think. But you can clearly tell this guitar has more of a bite, kind of a raw, bitey sound to it, which is what I used all on my album. And then the other one, it's a gold color, if you ever see it in any videos. That one is a warmer, kind of closer to more of a traditional, mahogany body, like a Les Paul or SG, although it's a longer scale length, so it doesn't. So anyway, that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But I would say the Tim pedal, this, and then I would say the other main component would be the amp I used on that album was a Dr. Z EZG50 head, and then a 212 ported cabinet, which I think gave a really nice, tight bass response, especially like that. And then I used a Plush Good Reverberations reverb pedal, digital reverb, which I prefer usually digital. I love Spring just for the fun sound of it, kind of a classic, old school Spring sound, but for my own stuff, I like digital reverb. And again, I'm not too attached to the I'll probably have a different reverb setup by the time I record my next album. But I used that, and then I used a T-Rex replica delay, which I also don't have. I sold it to the same friend that has my other tin pedal, or one of my tin pedals. And that I really did like a lot. I think there was a really warm sound. I tried out a ton of delay pedals before I liked that one. But that was 12 years ago, so there's probably equal or better pedals, or at least ones that I would like as much or better, you know. So yeah, I would say for me, a nice digital reverb, delay on the leads, specifically 3 repeats. I could talk about that maybe in another video, but that's kind of a classic lead tone setting. You know, hit a note and then 3 repeats. As far as the bass and treble and all that kind of stuff, I just wing it. I just go by ear. It's funny. I'm very, very picky in a lot of ways with tone. And on the other hand, I just plug into gear and see what sounds good to me. Like, I'm not so much about specs and all this kind of stuff. In fact, in my first book that I wrote, a lot of the equipment stuff in there, I had to research and take notes a lot because I just don't remember, you know, if you get into like this 6L6 and this ELE34 tubes and this voltage and like, it's cool. People, I can see how that would be a really fun thing for people to do, to kind of, you know, geek out on that kind of stuff. But to be honest, I just don't care that much. I just like whatever sounds good to me. Cool. I mean, I might have to learn about something to know what's different so that I can, you know, the process. But once I found what I like, then I just plug in and play. That's just how I've always been. So yeah, the one thing I would say, depending where you are in your journey, Brian, is really watch the mid knob. People that have been playing usually in their earlier years tend to set the mid too low, and that's what they call the smiley face EQ. It's like a lot of highs, a lot of bass, and then not much mid. Metal guitar players do that a lot. And the mid, you think about the guitars and mid-range instruments, so for it to cut through, you really want to have a fair amount of mids. But that's, you know, obviously personal preference too. So yeah, I don't, I probably set, like on my recording, on my album, I probably set the bass a little bit higher than most people would, for whatever reason. So yeah, I think those are personal things though. Let's see, was there anything else you said about that? Gain, reverb, delay. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, over the years I've used, you know, lots of different kinds of gear, crazy, you know, ring modulators and crazy weird effects, and I tend to go through phases where I like to check that stuff out, but the longer I go, I'm kind of a more simple plug-in, 3 pedals on the floor. I think I played one of my bar bands, I had like 2 pedals on their floor, and I duct taped them to the ground because we were running around on stage and stuff. So as far as currently, I feel like I'm in between. Like, I really have been looking at a couple amps. There's a Swart amp that's really tiny, but it's super, super cool. Atomic Space Tone Junior or Pro, I think. And then I tried this Car Artemis and I think Rambler out that I really liked a lot. It's just like my playing is just different now than it was before. I mean, I still hopefully enjoy all the whatever I did on my first album, but a lot of the stuff I'm doing now, you know, the like whatever, kind of more funky. Like maybe I'll play a part of a riff I have that might be on an album someday. I have this nope, it's let's see. Like, that's something that I will probably springboard off of and write. And so anyway, I'll probably have more of a bluesy, funky, hopefully a little bit of jazz infusion thing, but I don't know. Who knows? It's kind of weird. That's a longer conversation, but if I had recorded a second album 3 years after my first one, it probably wouldn't sound much different. So in a kind of a weird way, I'm kind of glad that I've had 12 years, going on 13, I guess, years between my next album. So yeah, hopefully it helps with the tone thing. Hopefully it's not too vague. I'm kind of more, yeah, plug in and play. Although again, I'm very picky. Like, I have custom made guitars, so I'm obviously got to the point where I was that picky. So kind of weird. But let's see. Bob Schleif asked about. Let's see. Sorry. I have a question about building speed. It's a long road, I gather. Any tips about practice, technique, routine, and expectations would be great. Thanks for offering up this Q&A. There is much out there, but not enough personal outreach offered. Yes, so I took a couple notes here. Metronome, I would say, is number one. And then have a solid plan with licks and scales. And then write down your metronome settings. and then fourth, I have my notes here, fourth is patience. So I don't think I play fast. I mean, I play fast by, somebody's standard somewhere in the world, but but not by the world, the shredders in the world. But back when I was before I went to California to go to music school, for 6 months I worked an hour a day on Paul Gilbert licks, specifically off of his, I guess, VHS tape, which totally dates me, but I don't really care. And I worked on these licks. I don't really do them anymore. I don't play like that anymore. But what I did is I would put the metronome, let's say it's at 60 beats, I would just go like, and then basically the idea is I would practice that, and then there's other licks too. If you check out, you can find it on YouTube. Paul's, I think he has these, I think he does it up here. That's just, so, but what I would do is I would have like X amount of licks, I don't know what there was, probably like, 7 or 8 licks, and I would write down the metronome setting, 60, and just practice it, and then like maybe 3-4 days later, try to bump 60 up to 62, if it took a week, 60 up to 62, and then, let's say the next week's, you get to 64, I'd cross out the 62, now I'm at 64, and then I would stay there for a few days, or a week, or if it took 2 weeks, whatever. Did this every day for 6 months, hour a day. And and it was cool because you just see your number go up. It's like 64, 66, 68. And I kind of liken it to like lifting weights. Like you wouldn't go and lift like, 100 pounds one day doing something and then throw in 150 the next day. Probably, you have to go in small increments. And it's kind of like if you just bump up really small increments, small numbers on the metronome, you won't really notice it. Whereas what I see some of my students do when they don't have success and they get frustrated and quit is they'll do this one day, try to do that the next day, and then the third day or a week later, and it gets sloppy because like they're trying to go too fast too soon. So I think the key is just live there for however long it takes, and then again use a metronome, but try to go a little faster, whatever. And patience, like set a big 6-month goal. Don't set like a month goal. That's huge. That's probably the number one thing, because otherwise, things that are, I can only speak from experience, but things that are difficult definitely just take time. For me, guitar is the most obvious one on this channel, but with my business, with writing books, anything I do like that kind of stuff, man, it's like time. just you just gotta have patience, it's funny. Sometimes when I'll talk to somebody, I don't mean this as any disrespect to anybody, but if somebody comes in and asks me like, "Oh, how's your new book going?" and I've only been working on it for 3 months, there's a pretty good chance that they've never done anything of a big project in their life before. Because unless they're just casually asking, it's fine, I should rephrase that. If they ask how it's going, that's one thing. If they say, when's it going to be out? That's when it's kind of a clue to me that they may not have done a big project of some sort. So that's another topic. But just think about it like anything that you do that's like really, really cool, playing guitar, new instrument, new language, whatever, it's gonna take some heavy duty time, So I think patience is the thing to develop there. So like I was just a kid that my mom could shred if she wanted to. You would just need to put in the time and have patience. So let's see. I'm gonna try to make these questions go a little faster here. It's gonna be a super long video. Paul Klaber asked, "Hi Rick, considering the number of years you've been teaching guitar, what are the most memorable experiences you've had both in person at your studio and on your own channel?" So I thought about this, Paul, and if I thought about it really hard, maybe I'd think of a few most memorable, but I feel like I'd be excluding so many students and so many just enjoyable days of teaching. So I'm just going to say it this way. There's a few things that are just common denominators in all the teaching I've been doing since I was 16 until now. The number one thing is I just really, really, really enjoy the inspiring, passing on knowledge, guitar knowledge to students, and having them walk away inspired, and just adding, hopefully something to their musical lives. If they're inspired, if they feel like they can do this, if I can help them, get past a certain point, it's all the obvious things you can imagine from teaching, any teacher of any walk of life. But that's just amazing to me. Because I have days where I just don't feel like I play very well, or I'm just, something in my personal life is not great. But if I can have 2, 3, 4 or more, I usually teach about 10 students a day. But if I can have, a handful of people just really walk away with something valuable, that's amazing. It's priceless to me. And then the other 2 ones I would say is just fun conversations. Just, I get to talk about guitar for like 5 hours a day. It's just amazing. So, whether it's, Ace Frehley's smoking guitar, or Jimmy Page when he twists around and turns when he does the solo for Still Living, what is it? Still Living You? That's a Scorpion song. Since I've Been Loving You, Madison Square Garden. It's just fun to talk about music, fun to talk about guitar. There's days when I'm not teaching, when I'm not working, that I miss it. It's funny. It's like, so I'm just very happy to be teaching all these years. And then the third one I'd say is laughing. It's funny. Like, if I'm gonna laugh hard throughout the day, and unless it's with a good friend or girlfriend or something, it's gonna be at teaching. I don't know, just fun. And so YouTube channel, I don't know yet. To be honest, nothing memorable yet. I think if I had to say, it'd be a similar thing. Actually, I have an answer. So some of my current personal students, Paul is one of them that asked this question. I get to see on a weekly basis, which is fantastic. A lot of them have become friends of mine, go to concerts together and stuff. And I know some are local musicians or people here in the cities. But it's so far, I would say if I had to pick one thing, it's people that I have no idea who they are. They're on the other side of the world, and they've gotten some value out of my videos so far. That's amazing to me. If I were to keep doing this YouTube channel for a while, or years, who knows, that's just amazing to me. It's just an extension of what I've already been doing personally. So that'd be the thing. Greg, looking at the time there, Greg Ralder. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. I never use my students' last names in person usually. Asked, I believe you started your guitar journey playing rock and metal. How has that changed over the years, and why do you think it has? So that one's kind of an easy one. For me, music is, I guess the analogy I would use is it's a journey. So picture you're in a boat, maybe a Viking vessel out in the seas, and you land on this particular land, island, country, whatever. There's the country of rock and metal. Ooh, this is awesome. Let's hang out here for a while. Let's stay here for a few years or so. This is amazing. Maybe we'll live here forever. This is awesome. But for me, it's like, okay, that's cool as that is. I want to get back on the ship and go somewhere else. It's like, oh, okay, we're here. Ooh, this is blues. Stevie Ray Vaughan hangs out here. This is pretty cool. Or it's next island, next country is jazz or funk. So so for me, I think in a very general term with music, sounds funny to say, but I literally think when I'm listening to music, I don't think this consciously, but this is how I'd have to explain it. It's just notes and rhythms and harmony in different combinations and different orchestration, whether it's duo, trio, quartet, orchestra. It's just sounds, rhythms. It's really, that's how I view music. I don't view it as a style necessarily. I just do for conversation, for convenience sake, but I'm not one for labels and almost anything. It just kind of, I think it has its negative, things. So, so I don't know. It's just a journey, just new sounds. I could probably expand on that, but that's probably the best way to put it. Oh, and I also fusion, obviously. So my album, if you had to sum it up quickly, it'd be rock fusion. It leans much towards the rock side, but there's other things going on there, and that's just attractive to me. So Let's see. Common Sense asked, do you have any recommendations for how a guitarist could try to get longer forms of paying work? Stuff like Vegas, hotel lounges, cruise ships, or even how to get started teaching guitar. Vegas hotel lounges, I have no idea, to be honest. That's kind of cool. I think if you lived in Vegas, I'm sure if you just talked around to musicians in town, and there's got to be a way. I'm sure you could contact places directly, maybe booking agent. Let's see, cruise ships. I played on a cruise ship for a month in the Caribbean. That was pretty cool. I don't know I'd want to do it for 6 months or a year, although I think that's super cool. The right age. I met these musicians, people that were in their 20s, that were playing on cruise ships, for like 6 months or a year or 2 years. Met a husband and wife who'd played for like 12 years on the ship. So yeah, it's all personal preference again. But it's cool. A month was good for me. We were a fill-in band, so it came through the guy that I was playing with at the time. But I did look it up quickly, and you can just you can contact through the websites or phone numbers. You can contact cruise ships, and there's a way to apply. So that's a super cool thing. If I was in my early 20s and read music, amazing. So you could do anything, charts, all that kind of stuff. Man, if you go on a cruise ship, you have no expenses, just a cell phone. That's it. Free food and lodging. Do that for a couple of years. I think I remember hearing to the ship that there was these, especially people from Canada were coming down doing that for a couple of years. They'd go back to Canada. Their money would appreciate well at the time, and they'd just buy a house. And anyway, so yeah. So teaching guitar, you can buy my guitar book called Teach Guitar. Should have a copy handy, but I don't. There, I would say it's very similar to starting out playing gigs. I would say start small and build. So if you can teach a friend or two, that's cool, get a little start. The next thing I would say is if you can teach out of your home, house, apartment, whatever you have. And the only thing there is legal aspects. You got to kind of watch it, because if somebody falls down on the steps outside your home and then they get hurt and they could sue you, so you want to take care of the legal things there. Like when I was a kid in high school, I taught for a while in my parents' basement. That's how I got started. Otherwise, just start at a small music store, something low key, less pressure, and then just be careful. You're only teaching within your comfort or talent range. So let's say you're pretty good. Let's say you've been playing for a decade or so, and you're pretty good. Maybe you want to start with just teaching beginners. That way, there's no way you could probably overextend yourself. And it's just a natural progress. It's a long conversation if I were to really get into it. That's why I wrote a whole book on it. There's actually far, far more going into teaching, I believe, than some people think. I'll just say teaching guitar. I don't know about teaching other things, but yeah. So just you got to start somewhere and then go from there. Maybe I'll do. Yeah, that'd be pretty logical. I'll do a whole video or maybe some videos on teaching guitar at some point. Dead on Reviews asked, any advice on how to get more gigs? This one's kind of similar. So I would say there's two main ways, is to have a booking agent or not. In all the bands I played in over the years, over a dozen bands, I think there's only one that had a booking agent. And that's pretty simple. You just pay them 15 or 20%, whatever it is. And then you get gigs handed to you. And you just keep playing the places you like. I think you usually don't have to play the places you don't like. If you play a particular club and you don't like it, just don't play there. Otherwise, in the bands I've been, it was all kind of pieced together in a way haphazardly. There's so many scenarios here. But if you want some concrete ideas, I would say you could approach a bar or club or venue, whatever you're trying to play, and just inquire. And then usually they'll ask for something that you would give. Back in the day, it was some kind of bio and a CD, of your music. And then you usually get a trial kind of thing. Maybe they put you on an off night, like a Monday night or Tuesday night, depending the bar and that kind of thing. And then if you're good and they like you, and they maybe move you to a Thursday and do that for a while, maybe 2, 3 times, 4 times. And if you're really good, people are really digging you, then they hopefully would move you to a Friday night or a Saturday night. That's generally speaking how it would go. Now granted, here in the Twin Cities, there's some really awesome clubs that Monday night or Tuesday night is the hot night, so that's different. But I would say generally speaking, across many bars and stuff over the years, experiences I had, yeah, it's like Friday and Saturday are obviously the kind of the hot, desired nights to play, and then maybe Thursday would be the second one after that. And another thing you can do is play smaller out-of-the-way clubs. So start in a smaller town, kind of get your experience level up higher, and then work your way in. Again, like if it's in the Twin Cities here, you wouldn't most likely, unless you were already seasoned musicians or just stellar, you probably wouldn't walk into playing like your first night, first gig wouldn't be like the best bar in downtown Minneapolis, probably. Let's say you start out in a small town or a suburb and kind of work your way in. Kind of like, again, with teaching guitar, you got to start somewhere and then you build from there. So hope that helps. Sometimes in some bands, somebody in the band likes to do the legwork more. So let's say you're in a band and the drummer is just somebody who just, doesn't mind getting on the phone, just, calling places, dropping off promo materials, which again is mostly be online. I guess you wouldn't drop it off physically as much anymore, but so yeah, hopefully that helps. Scott Milne asked, what is the most important concept that most intermediate to advanced players don't focus on but should? So this one, I would say my first thing would be timing and groove if you don't feel like you're really, really good at it yet. And even if you do think you're good at it, it might still be good to keep working on it. There's definitely layers, or levels of groove. There's just playing in time. But if you get into things like funk and that kind of stuff, it's like you gotta learn how to play behind the beat and all this kind of stuff. And that's just like one of those non-negotiable things. I mean, like how fast somebody plays, that's personal preference, tone, personal preference, all this kind of stuff. I suppose you could say playing in time is personal preference, but I don't think so. I mean, obviously, in the real world, you're gonna have to play in time to get the job done and even enjoy yourself, and the musicians that you play with are gonna enjoy it. So yeah, timing for sure. Groove, I would put in there too. You could subdivide that because that's specific. Like if I wanted to learn how to play Latin grooves, I couldn't do it to the level I want to right now. I'd have to work on it, so just kind of be aware of what you don't know and then work on it. So that'd be my number one thing, I think, if you timing. But then I have maybe another one I think is important is I should put this in a category as just play with musicians, play with other people, start a band. And the reason why is that I see a lot of my personal students, let's say adult students especially, that play for fun at home, and then they come to this, my school and learn. And if that's all they want to do, that's great. But believe me, there's a ton of fun you have playing in a band with musicians. And if you haven't done it before, it's like trying to describe what the color red looks like if you haven't seen it. It's so much fun. I even enjoy playing simple things in bands at times that I never would have thought I would have ever cared about, but it was the musicians and the atmosphere and the sound and the vibe and all this kind of stuff. So another conversation. But the other thing there that what happens is that if you play in a band or just play with musicians, let's say a buddy who plays bass or drums or something like that, you're applying everything you've learned up to that point. So it's like, instead of like just playing things in pieces, like, you're working on licks or you're working on scales or whatever, you're actually making music, like you're actually making music with that person in that moment. And that's a whole different thing. It makes you, I think, learn faster because you have to rise to the occasion to, this and that. Again, I could expound on this. This is kind of cool. I think all these questions will lead me to more future videos. So I would say that, like, and there you go. So if you were playing with a musician, you're gonna have to play in time too, right? So those are two big ones. I could think of more, I suppose, but I think that's what I would say. And then I think maybe to the last question here. This one I've already answered to. This is one of my personal students. Peter, but I'll just answer it in case you want to know. Peter Ganser asked, I have a traveler guitar, Escape Mark III, that I'm about to take on a 2-week trip. He went to Hawaii, which is pretty awesome. It needs new strings. The factory equipment recommended string options appear to be one of these two choices. And then he gave me something. I think my original strings on the guitar out of the box are acoustic, which would be fine. Which would be the most versatile choice if I am inclined to use it for both acoustic and electric while traveling. If I understand that question, and I think I do because we talked about it, but yeah, you're going on a trip, got a travel guitar, takes both kinds of strings, electric, acoustic, which one do you do? I guess for me, is if I was going for more of a, like if I was working on fingerstyle and I wanted to have an experience of acoustic-y sound, then I would go with the acoustic strings. But if I was working on, blues stuff and, bends or whatever, then I would go with electric strings. So that's hopefully that's not a lame answer, but that's how I view it. So just sound or playability. So yeah. So yeah, thanks for everybody for the questions. Super cool, fun to do. Hope this helps answer your questions, and I hope whoever is watching gets something out of it. And yeah, till next time, thanks.